Hi, grade 3 friends. Today we are doing another poetry lesson. And for today's poem, we're actually going to be flipping towards the back in our book of poetry until you find the 5W page that looks like this. And on the back of that one is the page that we will be writing on today, looking like that. And we are going to be answering in our poem the questions who, what, where, when, and why. We've talked about these words in class as the WH words, and so we're going to be doing something different with them today and putting them to use in a poem. All right, I look forward to doing this with you. I will see you shortly. Here we are at my writing desk. Can you tell what my favorite color is? Yeah, pink. Pink mouse, my pink binder. Makes me happy. Also love sparkly things like this pen. Okay, so let's take a look at the poetry. Just remembering the poems that I've already written. Turkeys. We did this in cane last time. Okay, so we're skipping right through over to 5Ws. This poem stands for who, what, where, when, and why. This poem should tell an interesting story about someone or something. Who, what, where, when, why. So here's an example. My baby sister cries so loud in her baby crib in the middle of the night because she wants her mom. Now, I kind of think that this is an example. It tells who, it tells what the baby sister did, where she did it in her crib, when in the middle of the night, and why, because she wants her mom. So this does follow what the 5W poem does. However, I think that it just mostly sounds like one big long sentence. And it's okay, but we can actually make it better. So when we're writing our poems, I really want to concentrate on how to make it more interesting and take it from just a boring long sentence to something that's interesting to read. And of course, the best way to do that is to use our triple scoop words and lots of description. Okay, so if we go over to the back, we have the page here. Okay, think of an interesting story you could write about someone or something, then answer the who, what, where, when, and why questions. Now, I'm going to save this one for my final copy of the one that I decide to do. And I've just printed off some extra copies of this page, but you can just do this on paper or even on your whiteboard until you have the poem the way you want it. Okay, so I just got my extra copies here. So I'm going to first do one. I thought it would be interesting to try and write one from one of our characters in Charlotte's Web. And I'm going to write one about Charlotte, okay? So, who? Well, first of all, Charlotte. Now, I'm just going to put the ideas that come to my mind. I'm not worrying about being too fancy at first. Okay? What? What did Charlotte do? Wrote a word in her web. Where did she do this? In the barn. When did she do this? At night. And why? To save Wilbur. Okay, so let's read this right now. Charlotte wrote a word in her web in the barn at night to save Wilbur. So I've done all the parts, but it's kind of boring. So I need to think about each part and how can I say some parts a little differently or use different words that are going to be more interesting for my reader and really to make my poem more poetic. So I'm just going to put it off to the side. So I have it over sitting beside me, but I'm just going to focus on here. Okay. So instead of just starting with Charlotte, I'm actually going to give Charlotte some description. And I know that Charlotte was the kind gray spider. So already that is a little more interesting. There goes my pen. There we go. A little more interesting than just saying Charlotte. And it tells my reader too who Charlotte is. Okay. Now I had for what wrote a word in her web, and that's just really plainly stating what she did. So I wonder if there's a fancier way that I can say that. I really like the word weave that the author used in the story. And it really is quite magical. So what about this? Charlotte the kind gray spider weaves her magic. Now I'm leaving this sort of up to the reader because I'm not exactly saying what she does, but this is much more mysterious and interesting. Charlotte the kind gray spider weaves her magic. Now it does happen in the barn. Where in the barn? Up, kind of above the door. So how about weaves her magic above the barn door? When? Well, it does happen at night, and she kind of worked all night. Remember how tired she was the next day? So how about all through the night? And that kind of flows nicely. And why? Well, it is to save Wilbur. What would be an interesting way of seeing that and capturing that idea? You know, Wilbur's her friend. She really wants to save him. How about because she's on a mission to save. Now instead of just saying Wilbur, I'm going to add some description there. Her beloved friend. I like that. Sometimes these words like beloved have so much feeling in them that they really add just that extra punch to our poem. Okay, so let's go back to what the poem said first time I put my ideas down. Charlotte wrote a word in her web in the barn at night to save Wilbur. Charlotte, the kind gray spider, weaves her magic above the barn door all through the night because she's on a mission to save her beloved friend. Okay, this one has a lot more description and it is a lot more interesting, although it has the same message as the first one. Okay, so here is another one that I wrote, and this is just my first getting my ideas down. My husband puts out fires in Penticton when there is a fire because he is a fireman. Okay, so this is pretty plain and pretty boring. All right, my husband is a firefighter, so yeah, he puts out fires. I'm sure I can find a more interesting way. Where does he do it? In Penticton, because that's where we live. When? When there is a fire. Well, yeah, of course that's when he puts out fires. So that one's pretty obvious. And why? Because he's a fireman. That one's pretty obvious too, and I'm sure there is a much more interesting way that I can do this. So let me put some thought into it and work on it a little bit, and I'll show you what I come up with as my final poem. So here is my finished poem. My hardworking and courageous husband saves lives and protects homes in his hometown whenever the alarm rings, because that's what firefighters do. I really like how this one sounds compared to the first one, because you really don't know for sure what my husband is until the very end when I mentioned firefighters, because I didn't say anything about fire anywhere else. You definitely have clues. So how did I make it better? I put in some description here. I put in some adjectives to describe my husband, and I picked ones, there's lots of words to describe my husband, but I picked ones that would relate to his job. He's very hardworking, and firemen are known, or firefighters are known to be brave, right? So I used the word courageous. And instead of just saying whenever there's a fire, I wanted to bring in another one of our senses, so hearing. And you think of fire alarms when you think of a fire, right? And so by saying whenever the alarm rings, and that's when the firefighters jump to their jobs and jump into the fire truck and off they go. So I like how that one turned out. In fact, I think between the Charlotte one and my firefighter one, I think I'm going to choose the one about my husband to put into my poetry book as my good copy. And so here is my final poem. I wrote it out neatly up here, and then I found a picture from a newspaper that I had of my husband. This is him right here in the front, and it goes along with my poem, so I just put a heart background on it and put it on there. I would like you to illustrate your poem. You can draw a picture. If it's about somebody from your family and you want to use a photo, you may do that, but only if you have permission. Please don't go and get one and cut it up and glue it on without asking. And as well, throughout your poetry booklet, if you want to, you can decorate it even more. You can color in the bubble letters, color the borders on all of the pages, if you so wish to do so. Okay, so I want you to have some fun writing your own 5W poem, and I'm really looking forward to reading what you come up with. Please take the time to be thoughtful and specific about the words that you're choosing to use. You want to make it interesting and poetic. We don't just want to state the obvious. Have a great day, and I will see you very soon.